Okay, John 7. We left off in the middle of it, where I was making the case that Jesus had biological brothers and sisters born of Joseph and Mary. So we got to go to John chapter 7, and we can look that up. John chapter 7. We're looking at the Latin Vulgate to do some research on the word brothers in Latin. So let's look up the Latin Vulgate word. Here it is. And you go right down to the area that we were looking at. Let's back it up and review. The phrase, we're looking at John 1:7-8. The phrase his, Jesus' brothers, in John 7:3 refers to the sons of Mary and Joseph after Jesus' birth. And this is so for a number of reasons. The Greek word adelphoi, which is rendered brothers in John 7:3, could not mean brothers in the faith, as some contend, because the context of brothers in this verse excludes the disciples who are believers. Disciples are considered believers in this case. Furthermore, the brothers in view in this verse are later declared in 7:5 to be unbelievers, not believers. So you wouldn't refer to brothers who are unbelievers. Jesus said you don't believe. So finally in John 7:7, this implies that the phrase rendered his, Jesus' brothers, are evil in part of the world. Hence, this could not mean brothers in the faith. Still others maintain that the Greek language had no word for cousin, and that this was the reason for the Greek word adelphoi, rendered brothers, had to be used. But in fact, the Greek word transliterated anepsios is the Greek word for cousin, and there are other words in the Greek for specific types of cousin. Furthermore, all of the Lord's relatives in this passage were not cousins. So if a variety of distinct relatives were intended in John 7:3, as some contend, then the language would reflect this, but it does not. The rest of Scripture indicates that if John, Paul, and Mark had meant that James and Joseph and the others were simply kinsmen of Jesus, not cousins or brothers, then they would have used the Greek word transliterated with these letters, I don't know how to pronounce it, which is the generic word for kinsman, but they did not. This Greek word is used in this manner in Mark 6:4 and Romans 9:3 and elsewhere in the New Testament, and would not to refer to Jesus' brothers. So, then we go to the Latin Vulgate. Galatians 1:19 in the Latin Vulgate, the Latin word frater is used to refer to the Lord's brother James. The Latin word nepos, meaning cousin, was not used. Thus, there can be absolutely no doubt that Jesus had brothers who are the biological children of Mary and Joseph. Now, you can click on this button here saying more, and we get a study on that and a chart. So without a doubt, you can look at these, and it clears up this problem, which millions of people believe that Jesus was the sole child of Mary and Joseph. So, Jesus' brothers, sons of Mary and Joseph, confronted him and told him that he should go into Judea so that his disciples there might also see the works that he was doing, implying that he had performed no miracles there. John 7:3. The brothers of Jesus were evidently skeptical that Jesus performed any miracles at all, despite his healing of the invalid at Bethesda Pool at the temple in Jerusalem, which was so well attested to that the Jews sought to kill him for allegedly breaking the law for healing on the Sabbath. This one incident, they just kept festering over it. We got to kill this guy. Furthermore, Jesus' brothers admonished him with more sarcastic skepticism by indicating that no one does anything in secret if he legitimately seeks to be known openly. And Jesus refused to go into Judea directly because they were trying to kill him. They impute his testimony, the legitimacy of his purpose, and the validity of his performing miracles with, if you do these things, maybe you don't, show yourself to the world. The Greek phrase rendered in John 7:4, if you do these things, show yourself to the world, is an if-then clause using I, meaning if, in the indicative mood. You can check on that in the Greek, in the grammar. The phrase, then, in the Greek, implies in this context that Jesus' brothers did not believe that he was performing miracles. A little bit of grammar there. They confronted him with sarcastic skepticism. If, and for the sake of argument you do, you actually did perform miracles and you don't, and sought to be known openly, then you should go to Judea and face the stoning. Wow. So they continued to suggest that it would better serve his purpose to manifest his miracles in Judea openly before everyone in Jerusalem, where people came from all over the world. If you do, but you don't. Although it had been about 18 months since Jesus had left Judea, some time has gone by, because the Jews there sought to kill him, it was still questionable why Jesus' brothers would suggest that he go back to Judea, where the Jews might still be actively seeking to kill him, and they were. John 7:19. Author John corroborated Jesus' brothers' skepticism with, neither were his brothers believing in him. The imperfect tense Greek verb, rendered were not believing, speaks of an habitual attitude of unbelief. Only till after he went to the cross did they choose to believe in him, a number of them. Jesus answered his brothers' rhetoric by telling them that his time had not yet come, in the sense of it not being God the Father's time, and that it was not yet his time to be taken by the authorities and through that provide for an atoning sacrifice for the sins of the whole world. They were completely ignorant of this. Jesus' words implied that his life and his humanity was to be lived by God the Father's predetermined plan. Hence he chose to minimize his exposure to the authorities to reduce their opportunities to seize him before his plans stipulated, and stone him before he went to the cross. On the other hand, Jesus said that his brother's time was always ready, implying that they could go into Jerusalem at any time they chose, for their lives were not so directed by God as Jesus's was. Jesus went on to tell his brothers that the world was not able to hate them because it was evil, implying that they were part of it. But he said it did hate him, because he implied that he was not part of the world, and because he testified continually that its works were evil. So he told his brothers to go up to the feast without him, for he would not go publicly with them because his time had not yet come. Had he gone up openly with his brothers in a caravan, he would have easily been seen, putting him in position to be seized before his time. Although the Greek word upo, rendered not yet, in John 7:8 in the YLT does not occur in many manuscripts, it does appear in the older papyri and in some of the older uncial manuscripts. Furthermore, since I am not going to this feast is the more difficult reading of the text, and since that reading can still be interpreted, I am not going to this feast, in the sense of with you meaning Jesus' brothers, and since verse 7:10 later stipulates he also went up, in the sense of going after his brothers had gone several days before, then the intent of Jesus' words on the matter of not yet going to the feast firmly support his going later without any deception in view. But people like to bring that up. But if you analyze it carefully and read it carefully, you can answer the objections of those who want to find fault, forcing things to be said in a way that they think it should be said, instead of just reading it and reporting what it says, using language, context, and logic. So we move on. Having said these things to them, he stayed in Galilee, verses 9 through 13. But when his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he himself also went up, not openly, but as if in secret. Then the Jews therefore were seeking him in the feast and said, where is that one? See, after 18 months, they still want to stone him to death. They can't let it go. And there was much grumbling among the crowds concerning him, since some were saying, he is a good man. Others were saying, no, on the contrary, he leads the people astray. However, no one spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. They were just frothing at the mouth to throw their stones. So having spoken to his brothers relative to the matter of not going with him to Judea to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, Jesus remained momentarily in Galilee. But when his brothers had gone, he also went, but in secret. Nevertheless, the Jewish authorities sought him at the feast. See? Would have walked right into it. Many there spoke about Jesus. Some said he was good. Others said that he deceived the people. But no one spoke openly of him for fear of the Jewish authority who sought to kill him and would kill anybody that said anything. Wow. They think the answer to God. Now, 14 to 18. Now, the middle of the feast. Now, the middle of the feast, Jesus went up to the temple, and he was teaching right there. And the Jews marveled, saying, "How does this man know letters, having never studied?" Jesus answered them and said, "My teaching is not mine, but it is his who sent me," meaning the Father. "If anyone may desire to practice his will, he shall know concerning the teaching. Study the word, whether it is from God or whether I speak from myself." And then the one who speaks for himself seeks his own glory, though. But he who seeks the glory of the one who sent him is true, and there is no unrighteousness in him. Observe and report. Don't speak for yourself when you're sharing the word with others. Learn it properly. Learn it in detail. And when the situation comes up of what you know, share what you know. Fearlessly. Jesus did that. Walked in there and taught. He didn't hide. He just picked his time. So after Jesus, having remained in seclusion until the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles, he went up to the temple and began teaching. The Jews marveled at his teaching. Wow. Jesus indicated that his teaching originated with the one who sent him, God his Father. He declared that one who spoke for himself sought his own glory, but one who sought the glory of the one who sent him, meaning God his Father, was true, and there was no unrighteousness in him. You can emulate our Lord by following in his footsteps on this. Learn the word and find opportunities to teach what you know. So according to the verses 11 to 12, Jesus' absence during the first half of the week of the Feast of Tabernacles had aroused the curiosity of many people. There's much grumbling about him in the crowd, from saying that he was a good man to claiming that he led people astray, but none of the grumbling was done openly for fear of reprisal by the Jewish authorities. He had evidently remained in seclusion till the middle of the feast, and then he went up to the temple in Jerusalem, not only, but as if in secret. When he got to the temple court where teaching was done, he began teaching the people, right to his purpose. Public teaching in general was done by those who had gone to Rabbinical School to become rabbis, and the teacher usually provided the points of view of the elders as opposed to providing their own opinions. Jesus, on the other hand, presented the scriptures and his interpretation, which often clashed with the elders' opinions. That's a big risk. The Jews, in the sense of the leading and most learned men among the priests and scribes, marveled at his teaching. Wow. And it's imperfect tense, ongoing marveling, not just once. To the extent that they asked, "How does this man know letters, never having studied?" In the sense of his not having gone to a formal rabbinic school, such as the College of Hillel or Shammai in Jerusalem. There was an arrogant tone in their words, which restricted only those who went to rabbinical school to being learned in the scriptures. On the other hand, they were astonished as to how learned he was. He indicated that his teaching was not his in the sense that it did not originate with him, but that it originated with the one who sent him, meaning God his Father. So Jesus implied that he was taught by the one who sent him, God his Father. Wow. He picked his turn and spot, and then impressed them. We can return to this next time.